Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am absolutely delighted to welcome a visitor all the way from Amsterdam, Corstian Ten Hoor from All Options. How are you?
Thank you very much, Toby, for having me. I'm fine, thank you very much.
Listen, thanks first and foremost for coming over. I know there's been a little bit of time in the making and we're hugely flattered for you having taken the trip over to come and talk to us today. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about learning more about All Options. I'm excited about learning more about you and the business and all that sort of thing. I've heard great things so far. But I want to start with a big question. I want to start about the whole concept of market making. It's an interesting area. As we were talking about before we came on air, people know people in banking. Market making is a slightly, it's an area which people don't know quite as much about. So we're going to explore that, and we're going to talk all things All Options, all things you. Talk about the growth you're on. Talk about expansion to the USA. There's something for everyone in this episode, so I'm really looking forward to doing it.
That's great.
So let's start with that big one. Tell us about market making.
Right. So whenever we have visitors, they often leave surprised. And they're like, this was way different than we expected. And basically when I asked them, it turns out that they were expecting that they would sort of enter some scene from the Wolf of Wall Street, and that we are loud on the phone, and we're, ripping off innocent investors, perhaps tossing, horse and dartboards from the floor. And then they leave and they know, okay, none of that is true. These are actually serious professionals, and they're playing a vital, essential role within the financial markets. And that role, that is actually being sort of a middleman. So market makers, they always stand ready to buy and sell within financial markets. So that's stocks, that's options, that's bonds, whatever. And they always have prices that they're putting in the limit order book on the exchange, at which they're willing to buy and sell. And any investor, hedge fund, pension fund, bank can come in and trade against them. And that might sound a little bit technical with the jargon that we're using here. So I always try to make it simple. So imagine you go to the supermarket and you want to buy tomatoes. Mm-hmm. Okay, you go there, you buy tomatoes, you can see the price. But what if you want to sell tomatoes? You can't. Now, if you go to the exchange, actually you can. You can sell tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
So we're sort of buying and selling tomatoes, and we're telling, okay, we want to, buy tomatoes at $1.90 a kilo, and we sell them at $2.10.
Yeah.
So that's one, important part. If you want to buy tomatoes or sell tomatoes, you just come there. You don't have to wait and sit around for some other interest to arrive. You can just do the trade and go home. And somebody else might come in the afternoon and take the opposite leg of that. Or maybe that day nobody wants to actually buy the tomatoes, but maybe somebody wants to buy oranges.
Okay.
So that's another important role of the market maker, that they're capable to sort of absorb those products into the inventory, and then also capable of hedging them with slightly different instruments. In this case, oranges, apples, or pears, whatever. Mm-hmm. Especially in options, this is important because you have so many options and they're all slightly different, but also highly related. And then I think the last important role of market makers is price formation within financial markets. So to come back to the tomatoes, imagine that you arrive and you want to sell your tomatoes, and there's a bunch of people that are going to buy and sell tomatoes, but none of them is showing prices. They have their hands behind their back. They're just not going to show the price. So you say, okay, sell my tomatoes, €1 a kilo. And all of a sudden, all of them jump on top of you and they start fighting for your tomatoes. That's where you got scammed.
Yeah, exactly.
So the cool thing about financial markets and market makers is all of them are showing prices. And of course, the best price will win. So they all always try to improve each other's prices. So you get this very competitive place where you can not only trade, but you can also find out what is the fair price for some instrument. So that, in a nutshell, is the very important role of market makers.
Where you fit into the whole ecosystem around it, told through the story of fruit and veg. I love it.
Cool, right?
So as you say, that culturally people come in there and it's not what they expected to see.
Yeah.
Tell me what they do see when they walk through the door.
Right. So they would see this big floor with a lot of people with massive screens, and there is a little bit of noise, yes, because these trading systems, they're set up in such a way that you can visualize a lot of stuff on the screens to keep track of what's happening in the markets, what's trading, and there's also sounds going off if things are happening, for instance, a trade or some news coming out. There's this squawk, which is like all of a sudden you hear a voice and he's just saying whatever Trump is tweeting.
That's keeping everyone busy at the moment.
Yeah,
Right?
but you see a lot of people that are just sitting behind their desk or maybe having a meeting, but like a normal office space as well. Screens are bigger, it's a little louder, but it's also fairly regular. Oh, and people wear hoodies, that's cool. Because we don't actually have clients. So we trade on the exchange, but we trade with our own money. So.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. And you've been there for a little while now. Tell us a little bit about the story, your origin story with All Options.
Right. So I've been with All Options since the end of 2019, so just before COVID. It was like my first actual job. So I came there out of university after my master in quantitative finance. And I joined as a junior quantitative analyst back in the day. And my first big task was to build these business intelligence reports, which means nothing else than get data from places, do computations, and then put them in tables and graphs and stuff, and send those out automatically. And I was also one of the very first quants or quantitative analysts at the firm. So my first year was all about that, building these reports, making something out of them. It was helping the traders trade better. I was automating the pipeline, so I just have to click a button and then boom, everything gets generated and sent out. But then we also started, traders started to have some questions. We started to hire some more quants, and we said, wait, if two people try to do the same computation, first of all, it's not efficient if both of them have to write the same code, and second, they might get different answers if they have slight differences. So we said, okay, let's build an internal library where we standardize, the most common requests and computations, etc. So we set out to do that, and that was, I think, in the second year that we really made big steps there. And once we managed to have that library in place, it turned out that actually it was really making the workflow a lot faster. And even people that are less technical or less smooth with coding and Python, whatever, they could also more easily use the data and interact with databases, get data, etc. So that was a win. And then we said, wait, this was cool, but what if we take it one step further? What if we make this library also capable to interact with the trading system? So we started building that, and we started testing it, and then we could all of a sudden actually, from Python, from our code, we could manage positions within the trading system. So that's where things really got interesting, because now you have the quantitative. Well, at that point we were no quantitative analysts anymore. We were quant traders at that point. So that's one upgrade. And actually, you have the people that are sort of making the logic for how does this position need to be managed, are the same people that are actually building the software that manages those positions. So that was really cool. And from there, we've just been building that out further and further, also building the team out. And that's also pretty much where we are at right now. So
that's an incredible journey, though, isn't it? As well, when you can sort of go through that, and even from you or from a personal level, you sort of go in there with your accreditations, with your degree, and you start the thing in 2019. You've seen a lot happen. But actually, you've seen a lot happen on a social level, an economic level, but also on a technical level. And we've seen the industry morph and evolve a lot. Absolutely. And it feels like that sort of thing is the perfect sort of timing for you to be involved in all of that sort of thing at the same time.
I joined at a perfect time. I was also lucky in that sense. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So love the whole journey. Talk to us a little bit about All Options themselves. So we've seen an evolution of the business over that sort of period. But give us the background to All Options as a company.
Right. So we go back a long while, actually, all the way to our founder that first was with a competitor, then he was like, I'm going to start my own company. This is in the days that this was still in the pit, by the way. And he was computing option prices with some mental math and some shortcuts, etc.
You must be looking at that and just be thinking, what a different world, man.
Absolutely. The company has grown a lot over the years, and right now I would say we're an entrepreneurial growing firm. What for me really sets All Options apart is how collaborative we are, and how much info sharing there is. We work together within the teams, but also between the teams. I think that's really important, since traders are always too anecdotal. Traders are always too, practical. Or they want to have a rule for everything. So, but also between other departments. It's
quite an interesting fusion, isn't it? That?
Exactly. So I really try to create an environment where that happens, where all departments work together and create better, nicer products together. And I think another really important aspect of all options culture is how much ownership and entrepreneurship we give to the people, to the employees.
Because it's not always a sector that's massively known for its entrepreneurial nature, is it? And I think when you get the companies there that can foster that and create that, it's a great place to work when you have that sort of stuff.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I always say that when we have new people, we give you a lot of responsibility early on, and then it's up to you to take that responsibility and turn it into like tangible output and deliver, and basically
You've got to
prove
be
us right.
Yeah, and you've got to be the poster boy for that. It's been your story.
Exactly, it is exactly my story. So I think that is just the proof that is the cool thing about all options.
Absolutely. And all options, look, there is a number of market makers out there and such like. How do you guys differentiate? How do you stand out from the crowd? What do you guys do differently?
I think that, like I said, this collaboration part is really important. For instance, we don't have bots, so we work together, we share info. We think that together we can be more efficient as one firm, one position to outside basically. And another important thing for options is that we really try to stay focused on, the few things that we believe we're good at and where we want to focus on, improving. So, for example, for our expansion to the US, basically it came about because in Europe we are trading equity and index options. We're pretty much covering the universe. We're confident in our strategies, and there were no more like products to add. So we could, add an asset class perhaps, but we said no. We're good at equity options. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna go to the USA, and we're gonna try and also cover and conquer that market. So we did that about 2 years ago. We started an office there, and we started trading in the US. And of course, it goes slowly, but it also goes surely. Like one step at a time. Stay persistent, and then learn from your mistakes, and go forward. I think that's really all options.
I think that's such an important part of it. I'm saying there's a lot to unpack from what you just said. So that focus, I think, first and foremost, is something that's so is so critical to companies there that sort of really make a splash. There's obviously people there who've diversified and run into different areas. And when you've got multi-asset classes, there's a lot of temptation to sort of repeat and move into it. And the discipline there to say that this is what we're good at, and this is what we know. That is discipline at the same sort of stage, isn't it? Because there's got to be a lot of move to do it. And the USA is something there that's always so enticing. If you look at the sort of size and scale of the marketplace, there's always something that's attractive to it. So whilst you've got that, this is what we know and this is our discipline, actually moving that and being able to recoup that and take lessons over to there, I think is a great strategy to look at. And we know how exciting the US market can be.
Yeah.
What we also know about the US market is it's competitive, and it's sometimes difficult to do.
Absolutely.
And it's expensive to grow at various different stages. And I think sometimes people go into that marketplace expecting instant wins. What I loved about what you said there is, it was almost, to paraphrase, slow and steady, and make sure you're there and you're recognising it. I think some people look at the US and think it's this ultimate, this prize that you can win, and you've got instant success and gratification and all that sort of thing. The companies I see go into it hoping for that are always surprised and quite often pull back as quickly as they've moved into it. Talk to me about the 2 years of your US journey so far and how that's been going.
Well, we also definitely we had our moments where we're like, oh wait, this is more tough and competitive, etc. than we were expecting, and maybe you deploy one thing and then you figure out indeed it doesn't work as well as you were hoping. But like I said, we're persistent, so we really try to learn from those moments and then steer the ship in a direction where we actually think that we're, where there's space for us to grow and where we can actually do make a business.
Yeah.
But I think the number one very important lesson for me from the whole, US expansion is the communication and the sharing of values and working as a team. Because I'm going to give you an example. When the US office was less than a year old, and I came there, and we were working there. We were, it was a small team still. I think it was maybe 10 people or 12 people in the office. And I was visiting for a few weeks, and we were trying to deliver some projects. And then firsthand, I experienced that. Well, we start around 7:30 in the morning, so everybody in Europe is still awake and hard at work. And you have questions or you need things from people. They're there, they respond, all good. But then, towards 10 a.m., 11 a.m., here in Europe, the people, their day is almost over. They start logging off, they start cooking dinner. so the response rate drops, and people are not, they're not there anymore to answer your queries whenever.
Yeah.
And that is so tough. So when we saw that happening, we said, okay, we need to somehow change that. How are we going to ensure that we actually work as a team, even though we're in 2 time zones, 2 offices? So a couple of hacks that we applied there. We instantiated evening shifts in Amsterdam. So we had people working until 10, 11.
On rotors, or you had to have people just working US hours?
We had them working US hours.
Okay.
So, and then you have to make it nice. Pizza, and then they so that was one, so that you can actually keep working with the teams that you were working with. Another important one is to it's better to over communicate than to under communicate. So just set up all of these fixed goals, and even if you have nothing to say, just say, hi, how's it going? Yeah, all fine, all clear, okay, let's go. But you need to stay in touch, and also from a settler perspective, or when you are actually trying to start a business there, it's important to be able to formulate your problems clearly. So not just this doesn't work, but we need this to make it work, basically. We need X and Y to make it work.
It's so often underestimated, isn't it? And you spoke there about the sort of keeping the communication piece, but keeping the values and the culture similarly. Did you have people from Amsterdam move out to the US, or is the US team a natural US team that you sort of built out there? Is there a link between the two, or have you just been travelling out there a lot and sort of trying to get that culture similar?
It was both, actually. So we had some settlers going there to start up, but we also had some local hires, and we're obviously trying to expand the local team as well. But also, and that's actually one of the learnings from those first months, we also try to stimulate a lot of cross office visits, because I think it's so important.
Both ways.
Yeah. Like Amsterdam team is bigger, so you see more people flying from Amsterdam to Austin for a couple of weeks, but also some people for a couple of months. But it's just so important, because you bring the energy from one place to another. And you bring those values and you live them, you share them. I think that is a very important learning for us, for how you can make this actually work.
And you mentioned Texas. Just then. Talk to me about the rationale behind Texas.
Right. Okay. So
because there's lots of different areas you can move into in the States, isn't there? There's a lot of temptation in various different markets, and when we launched the business, we started in New York. We're still in New York at the moment. There's a lot of other areas to do it. I often think about where the best place to launch a business in the US is. Texas has got some really exciting things going for it right now.
Absolutely. They recently opened the first, I think, Texan Exchange something.
I
forgot the exact name, but the rationale behind it is couple. Austin, where in Austin is like this, this up and coming tech place. So it's a good environment. A lot of talent. The climate is nice. And the cost of living is a bit more bearable than New York or Chicago, for instance. So those are, I think, the main reasons. We had some people that checked out all these locations, but then they preferred Austin.
And the barbecue food as well.
Barbecue food is great. They have the Tex-Mex scene going on. It's a fun place. I like going there.
Absolutely, I can well imagine. So let's we touched on it before about your growth story, but I think this is really interesting. So to move from a graduate to where you are now, to be seen and sort of being so heavily involved, I guess, in the maturity of the business over that sort of phase, must be a great sort of thing. So tell us a little bit about that and what you're doing now and what your role looks like.
Right. So right now my role is head of Quant Trading, and I've basically completely left coding behind and just managing.
How's that feel?
It was tough in the beginning, and now it's also really fun and rewarding, because you can achieve so much more investing in the right people, and trying to put the right environment and infrastructure in place for them to really excel. So that is really, really cool to do for me. But it's also challenging because it's going so fast, so sometimes it's hard also for me to keep up, basically. It's 14 people now, in the US, so that's
a good sized team as well. And for a period has come as quick as that. 5-6 years in terms of how long you've been doing that. There's got to be an awful lot of personal development in that sort of phase as well. How's that been? Because that's not a long career to be sort of sat there as a head of Quant Trading, to be building out a team, 16 people into it, a lot of responsibility into that. It means you've got to find yourself as a leader to get your leadership style. How do you see yourself as a leader, and how have you developed that skill set? It's a difficult question, isn't it?
It is a difficult question. I think first and foremost is just trial and error. You go in with the best intentions, and you try to gather like counsel from the people around you, like your manager or maybe peers. So that's one thing, and then you just try to do your best. As a manager, I think you have to be empathic, but also strict at times, and then it's that. And then there's also some skills that you can actually learn by doing like trainings, like giving feedback to people is very important, specifically as a manager, and that is something that you can actually pick up over a course, for instance.
Because it's not easy, is it?
No.
Sometimes that feedback piece in particular has been a difficult thing for people to give. No one likes to be, especially when you come through and at certain stages, I'm imagining in that team there are people there who are peers at that central stage, and then suddenly you're the leader and the manager of the whole thing. Feedback is something which is incredibly important for people to develop and things. And what I'm getting from everything you've spoken about is there is a lead by example piece to where you're at. There is someone there who's obviously keen to learn, to develop, to try new things and to evolve, which I think is a great thing for people to be able to follow. But you've spoken about it inadvertently, I think, all the way through this, which is about the ability to listen, to understand, to be calm around what you're doing, understand people's viewpoints, and then to provide the right solutions to it. So if you think about the evolution of the business, for example, that's been about let's try, and you said at the start, there's nothing there where you have to be the world's best leader on day one.
No, you can't.
As long as you're sat there and you're open to that feedback yourself, and you're sat there and you're looking to take that feedback and say what can you do and how you can develop it. And you mentioned trial and error beforehand. That to me is a really empowering thing, and it's a great thing for the consistency of the people who are working for you. They see someone there who's ready to take that sort of thing, who's ready to learn, who's ready to develop, and ready to give that feedback at the same sort of time and communicate. Because quite often you see leaders there who just don't, despite the fact you think it was obvious, they don't like feedback, they don't like to communicate, they like to expect things to be done and then just sit there. Feels like the same, which is the antithesis of what you're about.
You explained it much better than I ever could, but this is exactly it.
It's difficult talking about it when it's yourself, though, right?
You're not going to be good at it from day one, but you just have to try with the best intentions and learn from it. That's important. Yeah.
And so, look, you've mentioned it before. There's a sea of change, evolution in the business, opportunities and growth. Growth means people, and people are often the fuel that sort of expedite that growth, make it faster or hold it back. It feels like to me that you're making good decisions about how you're bringing people into the business, but it also feels like it's a business which is on the move and looking to grow. So tell me about what you're looking for, how people, what good looks like for someone to come into All Options.
Right. So the most important thing for me is like the values and the energy that somebody brings.
Yeah.
It's more important to me than hard skills.
Yeah.
So it needs to match like the values of the company. So they need to be able to take feedback and to learn from their mistakes. They need to be collaborative. They need to show entrepreneurship and also affinity with trading or options is also important to us.
Yeah.
Naturally, because we want people to be enthusiastic about the business, about the products that we trade.
Yeah.
So that's another important one that we're looking for. And last but not least, of course, for my team, we also do look for hard skills. So we look for quant finance or STEM backgrounds, stuff like that.
And how do you pick out what a good hard skill looks like in that sort of?
Right.
Do you test for it? Is there an academic background you're looking for? And how do people stand out to you?
We do test for it. Yeah. So we have different types of assessments. We have one where basically it's about being quick at mathematics or quick at probability. So that on one end it tests, okay, are you good with numbers? But at the same time it tests, are you a quick thinker? Because speed is very important on a trading floor.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, we also try coding skills and more hard, hard skills in terms of, do you understand the models that we use for option pricing, or at least do you understand the mathematics behind them? Can you build some code that maybe models some difficult mathematical problem? So we have also assessments for that.
Because it's an interesting area, isn't it? Because CVs are often one thing, and then the reality is another thing when you test for it. I'm fascinated on this because I've spent 25 years trying to unlock the secret of what a good hire looks like, and generally I think we do a pretty good job at that. But I think it's always difficult, isn't it? Because there is so much that people know and don't know, and how they can come into it, and how people can perform on a day.
Yeah.
And I think that it's getting easier and easier to deselect the wrong people. So to make sure you're not making hiring errors by going through these tests and making sure you know clearly what you're looking for when you set out in terms of the values and who's the right person, as opposed to an outstanding applicant on testing and capability, but a terrible person in terms of value match and all that sort of thing. That becomes something quite easy. But I think when you're looking at alongside that, there are quite often people who slip through the net who might be fantastic, who might not necessarily be the best on paper, who come from an alternative background, or the people who go into a test and make a mistake from it and get ruled out from something there, which they could quite easily have done, but still be the best hire for the position. Right. How do you guys look at that side of things?
Well, I must say that we do have assessments, but we've always looked at the CVs as well, at the people. And sometimes we just have CVs that we think, we actually like this person, and we want to see them no matter what the score was, for instance. Sometimes we do that. But unfortunately, it's a luxury problem, I would say, but we do have plenty of applicants, specifically in Europe. So we also have the luxury of being selective, and yes, we will miss good people, unfortunately. But we also find better people at the end of the process. So
and when you say you're looking at that and you're looking at a CV, and as you say, look, you're there at your filter, you've got the luxury of people wanting to join the business, a prestige brand, etc., etc. What are you looking for on paper? What's the sort of background that people can look for it, and particularly when they're starting a career in trading?
Right. Well, for my team specifically, and I think for trading in general, so both the screen trader and the quant trader roles, it's really about being really good with numbers. So quantitative studies, it can be maybe quantitative finance, it can also be STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or probability or statistics or something. We also have usually we look for master degrees, but if somebody has a PhD, for instance, it could be a pro. It also depends a bit on the role that we have in mind here, because a PhD might also be too theoretical.
Yeah, absolutely. There's certain parts of it. And are you looking for anything extracurricularly or experience-wise or anything like that as well?
So we do always look for an interest in trading or options pricing. So if you can show that, well, if you come from a very pure science background, but you actually did this minor or this project on your own on GitHub on options pricing, that's a plus for us as well. Or if you did something with trading, and then if you did certain activities, maybe extracurricularly, like I don't know, run some association, whatever. Those could also be pluses, of course. And another thing that we really like to see is people that show the motivation to actually thoroughly prepare. So these assessments, for instance, they're not easy, and we might miss good people, but we also believe that people that really want to get into this business and into all options, they will also take the time and effort to actually do a lot of trainings here and prepare themselves properly. And also try to learn from that process.
I'm so pleased you said that, because I think it's missed so often, isn't it? When you're sat there and you're seeing people come to an interview and they haven't prepared, or their questioning's poor at the end, or they haven't put that effort into it. And I think there's such a clear divide between people who are taking it seriously. When you think of the sort of size and scale and the opportunity which they're being presented with, it needs that same sort of effort and attention you put in that you would be putting into the job at the same sort of stage. And I think it's such a missed thing that people don't research, they don't think, they don't ask, have the questions. They put so even down to a presentation sometimes of various different phases where you look at it. I love it when you see someone there who makes it a no-brainer for you. And I think there's a responsibility of an applicant to make it as easy as possible to be hired.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really important piece he gave up. Right, I knew this was going to be something there where the time disappeared like that. And so I'm going to finish with a couple of questions for you, quick fire questions we call it that. So, look, we know it's a fantastic career, trading. We know it's got great opportunities to it. Why would someone take a career in trading?
Because it's really dynamic. No day is the same. It's challenging. And when I say mentally, I mean like it's challenging for your brain. So you get to solve these very difficult problems. And it's also really competitive, I think.
And work with great people at the same time as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's another important part that's underlooked sometimes, is when you join a company. I think you should always be looking left and right and thinking who's going to be driving me to be, but to be better to look at that. And from everything I know and heard so far, is definitely you won't be shy in that sort of department.
Absolutely.
The other question I wanted to ask you is something which I've always, I mentioned it for 25 years I've been doing this job, and I ask a question whenever I sort of talk to a new client. I'm thinking, look, we are talking about wanting to attract and engage the very best talent in our business.
Mm-hmm.
So in the marketplace, we want the A-star people to come and join us.
Yeah.
But there's every other competitor who's looking for that at the same sort of time. So when they're there and there are a lot of good companies out there offering great careers.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has an offer and and they are everything you've spoken about beforehand, they've prepped well, they've prepared well, they've got great academics behind them, they're there and they share the values, and they've got 3 other offers on the table from other competing businesses.
Right.
Why all options?
I would probably tell them the story of how we are a growing business where if you come join us, you can be part of that journey, which is really challenging and also really rewarding. That plus the great people that I have the very privileged position to work with.
Well, I think you're also being too modest to say this, but I think if I'm looking at that and I'm speaking to anyone who's looking to take a career into this sort of thing, your story is without question the story to be telling when you come into that side of things, because you look at a sort of 5-6 year span and how far you've come and what you've been able to do and the trust that you mentioned beforehand that comes into that. That's an incredibly compelling arena to do it. So, look, if people are listening to this, they want to find out more, they want to speak all options with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Right. So, around the time that this podcast is going to air, there's going to be a new website, so check that out. And there's also going to be career opportunities there. And otherwise, follow us on LinkedIn, reach out over there, or via the website.
Fantastic. Corstian, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, hearing the story. Thanks for making the trip over. Much. And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thank you very much, Toby.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.